to make a short film. I've got these little band-aids over this hole. I got this really terrible pimple, and then this one was just I scratched it, and this was I scratched it. Maybe I'm eating too much vegan margarine on potatoes. So anyway, I thought I needed to make a, well, I'm all bandaged up. I need to make a documentary on what's up with the Brandon Farley Adam Waffen investigation. So basically, this, if you don't know the situation in Portland, there's this guy who like kind of seemed to follow around more of the right-wing people in the protests that were happening after the Trump deal kind of erupted all this kind of dangerous street violence. So he had a lot of good footage and editing skills, which wow, mad props on that. But he kind of got into these sort of mouthy debates on Twitter with various people who identify themselves as anti-fascist. And it was somewhat, provocative and rude. And some of the people he followed, they seemed to not want anyone to follow them or like give any coverage or documentation of what their message was, because it was like kind of like you could only have one message. And it became very sort of antagonistic. By about December, I was like in the middle of yet another move and like drama and boxes and packing and getting internet. And I noticed I think I'm only on my smartphone because I don't have internet yet. And I'm like, what's this? Everyone's freaking out because he was someone I just periodically checked in on, like what's going on with the drama with that guy. And I was vaguely kind of like, oh, like maybe a little worried because it seemed like he had this antagonistic relationship with a bunch of people online, and it's just something I checked in on, but it wasn't that big a deal. So when I see the Adam Waffen tweet, I'm just like, oh, WTF. I really don't know. It's not like I'm studying the databases of how many like creepy prison gangs and neo-Nazi organizations there are in this country, this world. I just generally am opposed to racism. Have like spoken about Mark Kruger, the Hitler enthusiast who wears neo-Nazi regalia. I've in the Portland police. I've spoken to him about his deal, trying to get more information out of him multiple times, and I've spoken at city council and county council probably more than anybody besides David Keith Davis or Lone Vet or somebody like that. So I have a clear and pronounced pattern of disgust and disinterest in anyone pulling some neo-Nazi shit. So I'm like, oh no, what's up with this? What's kind of like a young kid activist, and I don't know where he's from. I'm like, don't know much about him, and I'm aware of the trolley anon culture, like the anonymous kind of activist culture, where it's just like everybody says the most inflammatory thing to get a reaction. It's shock rocker stuff. So I'm like, ugh, I do sense that there's something possibly that's going on like that. And it turns out, as far as I can research, is that he was in a drama with a pretty hot girl that he seemed to have a crush on. And at some point she's this leftist and he's more conservative. And then he makes this statement to them. So I've talked to him, his story, according to his footage, to Nick Lee of Econ Breakfast, who's now our perma stalker, and my stalker, because I'm trying to figure out the riddle of what this all meant on Twitter. But he's like, no, it's parody. It's parody. It's facetious. And what I understand now, and this is my understanding as of 2 or 3 days ago, when I was just like, oh, because I really avoided this subject. I don't really want to hear about the riots and the brawls because it really bores me. I hate violence. I don't like not being safe. I don't like police brutality. I don't like anybody being brutal to anybody, whether they're left wing or right wing. So I finally realized, well, there's this strain in the anti-fascist group that wants to say, blah, 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 you're making a kill list for fascists. And it's this very hyperbolic language that the anti-fascists or the hot topic anti-fascist lights, not the real anti-fascists who are people more like me who are like against fascism, but the people who are very like pop culture, meme culture, internet culture, aspiring window smashers who want Portland to be more like Seattle, so everything's like a big riot all the time. They're all like, oh, well, they're like, Andy No makes kill lists for fascists. And I don't know, please, You guys comment and tell me what the heck is up with this, because I don't know anything about this or why you say that. But I think basically the idea is you don't profile me and I don't profile you, and anybody who exposes a real name is making a kill list. So I think that they were saying like Andy No makes kill lists for Adam Waffen, which is probably defamatory. I don't think that is in any way the intent, because Adam Waffen is like in jail. The FBI just cracked them. They're like freaking like a super fringe lunatic wannabe German neo-Nazi fringe organization that is like, right? So this young kid just goes something like, oh, Adam Waffen unmasked them and act accordingly, regarding anti-fascist, possibly violence too, including beating up Andy No, and nobody knows what the F, right? I come to find out through his stalkers circulating flyers with his birth date, oh, he's a Gemini. And I'm like, oh, that explains it. Could be some kind of double, triple entendre, like snide comment under the breath. So I'm trying to understand it. And like, is he a dangerous racist? Is he a misguided Nazi? Is he... But as it turns out, just true to form, as the footage from Nick Lee, who's a Jewish filmmaker, who's absolutely obsessed with this subject, and I don't really blame him. Brandon himself says, it was a parody. And this is a thing, it's hard to get with the Gen Y, is they have a rough life, they have hard knocks, like everything sucks, the economy sucks, all they have is technology and backbiting each other and attacking each other. The first time I spoke to Mr. Farley about it, he's like, basically I'd seen it on a meme, I didn't know what it was. And I thought, well, some people just like German sounding stuff, and I'm like, ooh. And I sort of admired him. I'd seen a few of his films and I was like, he's kind of interesting. Like, he's an interesting filmmaker, and he's an interesting, kind of like interesting at public relations and media, like in an Andy Warhol sense. So I was deeply worried and continued to be kind of sad on it. Then I just like sent him an email in January. He ignored me. I think finally by March he responded, and we had a little more communication on Twitter in February as I tried to absorb and understand it. And as I understand it now, I think it was hyperbolic in the sense that it was making fun of Antifa's extremism by saying the most absurd thing possible. And I don't think there is an actual... Who knows? I mean, now that he's friends with me, because I wrote a blog on the FBI's treatment of Muhammad, maybe he is on an FBI list or whatever. But I don't think statements, they might be really inappropriate, really offensive, really hurtful, and really sarcastic, and really rude. And I definitely think it was all those things, especially given the legacy of the Holocaust and everything that means and everything that goes be. But as it turns out, he loves Jewish people. That's what he tells me. He's fascinated by Jewish culture. And his sarcasm was directed towards people he perceives to be violent and dangerous and threatening people. And I don't know if there's a deeper side of the story. I don't know how much further I'll get, but I just think I needed to throw this out there because it's an incomprehensible scandal. It's not getting better. People are stagnating. They're really wretched. And it was my goal to understand it. So trying to understand something that is deeply offensive is also offensive to people who are deeply offended. So they can be offended at me for trying to understand his statement. And if I uncover more information that leads me to have a different conclusion than my current conclusions, perhaps there will be something there. And I suspected, well, sometimes people dabble in radical ideology. And how do you, if they are a dabbler in a radical ideology, whether it's, say, like a jihad or any kind of extremism, pulling them back from that radicalization or, temptation into radicalization is a very important goal and agenda. And I don't think Antifa or anti-fascism light, hot topic Antifa, fake cheesy pop culture high school Antifa is good at recognizing the agenda of needing to de-radicalize racism. Being against racism is great, being against fascism is great, but being able to meet it, pull it, uncover it, and turn it upside down and turn it over, that's kind of what I'm going for. I'm going for a deeper meaning. And that's why I've been making all kinds of cracks in this little Twitter war that's been a 2-month COVID-based Twitter aggression war with Econ Breakfast, is that getting inside an organization, like, am I a real infiltrator into the right, or am I an infiltrator to someone who's not even an infiltrator, who's just someone who's lost and confused? It's kind of, like Moonjin Cake said, maybe he's not beyond redemption, but Moonjin Cakes also said, well, the homeless should beat him up or kill him, or some kind of like, oh, the homeless will take care of him, some kind of mafia type talk. So all this like death threats that came up around his building and pivoting, I mean, if he did it for clicks, he might admit that. Or if he did it just to piss people off, some people are like that. They have like a rebellious streak, like, I'm just going to say the most effed up thing possible so you freak out for attention, which certainly got people's attention, got people talking. Conversations are being had, but how productive is it? Maybe it was highly like, I wouldn't recommend ever saying that, ever. Including, there are plenty of things the Antifa as it exists on Twitter say that I don't recommend also. Very crude, very vulgar, very gutter, the whole culture. So, anti-racism forever, anti-Nazi forever, anti-fascism forever. I think right now we're having arguments within anti-fascism. So my argument in trying to talk to someone, find out what they're about, find out what they stand for. I mean, I don't agree with white power hand signals, for instance. I don't even think they're funny. I don't think they're cute. I think it's kind of pathetic and lame. And I'm a total, like, I love my Scandinavian or Finnish culture or Swedish, Norwegian culture too. I love culture, but I don't get any meaning from a white power hand signal. I just feel like, puke again. And I want to know where people are coming from, where that's what makes sense to them. Like, is it poverty? Is it lack of opportunity? Is it lack of housing? Is it pain? Is it domestic violence? Is it alcoholism? Is it drug culture? Is it gang culture? Is it prison culture? I want to know where it comes from. So I'm looking at this more from like an anthropological, sociological level. Try to understand people. And you don't understand them if you're coming at them like that. And I'm a practitioner of nonviolence in my life. I'm a vegan, ahimsa, satyagraha forever. So everybody wants to obsess on me thanks to the fact that I have to deal with the fact that I think Brandon Farley's cute. Whoop-de-doo. Like, attraction. Whatever. But, like, I'm trying to relate to him as a human. Intellect to intellect. What's going on? And I'm older and wiser. And possibly older and stupider. So, you guys have it that, and I don't think I'll publicize this too much, but I just think I need to say it and clear the air with it and heal my zits. And I think I want a total eradication of this stupid street violence in Portland. I do actually kind of want Econ Breakfast to stop harassing me on Twitter. I don't see that happening in the future. So I'm working with what I've got. I'm loving my fate, which in Italian is amor fati. I'm just dealing with the fact that by trying to stop bullying, I just wanted an end to bullying. Just because somebody does something stupid or says something stupid or puts basically a stupid tweet is led to this long-term bullying war on Twitter and on the streets and home stalking and graffiti and all of that. And I just think people need to move on. Like, we need to get to the next chapter. We're stagnating and we're not getting much done. And I was like, get back to work. What happened to Mark Kruger? Weren't you going to take care of that? But this is where my argument is that targeting Brandon Farley is a soft target. Brandon Farley could be a misguided youth. Or he could be a wayward youth. He could be a misguided individual. Or he could have made a misstatement. Or he could have made an inflammatory statement. But he's not the core essence of the problem of alt-right. or racism. And I think he's hated because he's a propagandist and a filmmaker. But there are bigger things happening across the nation, and I don't think he's the embodiment. And I understand there's an argument that, well, giving cover to extremism by giving it this soft kind of granola look is even more dangerous. And so I just wanted to be clear that I'm not doing that. I'm not a fig leaf for fascism. I'm not a fig leaf for racism. I chased the Confederate flag down the street in 2017. I got one across the street from me in Seaside. You want to come and deal with that, Antifa? Good, come deal with that. That deserves some fucking graffiti if I'm supposed to be inciting you to that. I'm pretty neutral about graffiti. I like Shepard Fairey, I like Free Humanity in LA, Smog City and Banksy. I like high class graffiti. It's saying fuck Brandon Farley or Brandon Farley killers and like harassing him at his building, cutting his hair, all your stuff, man. It's pretty crazy, the farleymania. It just might get crazier. And the first time I talked to him, I was like, what is this going to be like? They shoot you outside your building like John Lennon? Like, WTF? And like, maybe they should get to know you and know where. They don't take him at his word, though. When he says I was being sarcastic and it was parody, they don't listen to that because they're still wounded, or maybe they don't understand that much cynicism and alienation, which maybe I don't either, but I'm trying to.